Good morning. It's Monday. It's June 15th, and this is Fox and Friends. We start with a Fox News alert. Right now, President Trump on his way to Europe for the G7 summit, fresh off of agreeing to an historic deal to end the war with Iran that he says will bring peace to the region.
And the commander-in-chief is telling ships that have been stuck in the Strait of Hormuz to start their engines, calling for oil to start flowing again, sending stocks soaring.
So we have team coverage for you this morning. Aisha Hasani is live in Geneva with how this will impact the G7 summit. But first, we'll go to Trey Yingst live in Tel Aviv with the latest on this historic peace deal. Good morning, Trey.
Yeah, hey, guys, good morning. After 100 days in a state of war, the region has now reached a deal. The United States and Iran agreeing to this larger deal that ultimately is going to open the Strait of Hormuz and address Iran's nuclear ambitions. The president posting on Truth Social overnight saying, quote, "This great deal will bring peace and security to the whole region. Many presidents have tried to make peace with Iran, and all have failed before me. The leaders of the region have, for the first time, found a president who can help them achieve real peace. With the opening of the Strait upon the signing of the deal on Friday, for purposes of mine removal, oil will flow on both ends of the region and the world." A signing ceremony is set to take place on Friday in Geneva, Switzerland. Before the deal was signed, it was nearly derailed. The Israelis targeted Hezbollah with strikes in the Lebanese capital of Beirut. Iranian officials immediately vowed to respond with missile fire toward Israel. A diplomat with knowledge of the situation told Fox News that Qatari mediators stayed in Tehran conducting intensive negotiations coordinated with the United States. Vice President Vance described to Fox News what those final moments were like before the agreement was reached. Could you take us behind the scenes of what that moment was like leading up to this deal actually being signed?
After the Israelis struck Beirut, we were very worried, and we saw a lot of evidence that the Iranians were going to launch a large number of missiles at the Israelis. With our communication with them over the course of getting to this signed peace deal, they assured us that they were not going to respond to the Israelis, and they were going to sign this agreement and get to peace. Now, of course, you always have to verify these things, Trey, and we know that there are a lot of people in the Middle East who do not want to make this deal happen.
I spoke with President Trump before the agreement was reached, and he was optimistic about what this means for the region. The president also told me he was going to get on the phone and ensure that Iran didn't fire missiles at Israel at the last minute. Guys?
Yeah, so Trey, if this does stick, this means it's huge. It means that Israel and the United States and the rest of the world will not have to worry about Iran developing a nuclear weapon.
Yes, absolutely. Signing a deal and implementing a deal are certainly two different things. This is just the beginning, but it certainly is a step in the right direction because it means not only will the Strait of Hormuz be opened, it also means that Iran's nuclear ambitions will be curbed. And the details of that will take some time to work out. There is going to be a 60-day window. I spoke with a diplomat familiar with the situation who indicated this week in Doha, Qatar, both sides are going to have representatives and work out some of the technical details toward the signing and then ultimately these other negotiations to hammer out the final agreement on the nuclear issue. When I spoke with the president yesterday, he talked about the highly enriched uranium that was buried deep underground in the aftermath of Operation Midnight Hammer last summer. And he said, look, there's only two countries in the world, the United States and China, that even have the ability and the equipment to get that nuclear dust, as the president refers to it, out from underground. And so it's going to take some time. There are a lot of technical details to be discussed, but the Trump administration has indicated that the IAEA, the International Atomic Energy Agency, is going to be involved as an overwatch agency to ensure that the Iranians are actually upholding their end of the bargain. And remember, they are not going to receive any sort of sanctions relief until they do so.
So, Trey, since this is just an MOU and there are different metrics that the Iranians have to hit, does that mean that the military is going to stay in place until all of those points and objectives have been honored?
We're likely looking at a tiered system. Initially, the U.S. naval blockade of Iranian ports will be lifted, and that is expected to take place on Friday after the signing ceremony in Geneva, Switzerland. There are still U.S. forces that will remain in the region. There could be somewhat of a drawdown, but you still have 2 U.S. aircraft carriers, destroyers, and a variety of assets across the Middle East in case things were to collapse in the future. A really important note that we talked about last night on Fox News: the Iranians didn't get what they wanted at the negotiating table, and this speaks to the successful negotiations on behalf of the United States, because ultimately they entered into these negotiations demanding that U.S. forces leave the region, that they leave all bases and go home. And that's not happening. You will still have thousands of U.S. forces in places like Bahrain, where the U.S. Navy's 5th Fleet is located. Also in Qatar, just outside of Doha, at the Al Udeid base that normally houses around 10,000 U.S. soldiers. And so there will still be a U.S. military posture across the region. But the question will be, ultimately, what does it look like in terms of drawing down the additional forces that were sent here during Operation Epic Fury?
Yeah, it's all performance-based. They have to produce something. If they start acting in an unsavory way, they're not going to get what they want. The whole thing gets derailed. Hey, Trey, something you're intimately involved with, and that's everyone's talking about Israel. Why are they bombing Hezbollah? They're bombing Hezbollah because 6 hours before, Hezbollah was rocketing them. So they responded again. So for Israel, for Hezbollah to do that, they'd have to get a green light from Iran. So it's not that Hezbollah is acting independently and Israel's acting independently. Israel's responding to the attacks that Iran is sponsoring. So if Hezbollah decides to attack Israel, that's because Iran's telling them to.
Yes, it's a major problem, and the Iranians have tried to connect the situation in Lebanon to the broader agreement with the United States. And this may come back to haunt them if Hezbollah is acting up and firing into Israel, because ultimately, if they are violating the agreement in Lebanon, they are violating the agreement with the United States, because this includes a clause about Lebanon. Now, today, Israel's Defense Minister Israel Katz came out and said the Israelis will maintain their security zones and posture in places like Gaza, Syria, and Lebanon. And Israeli forces say they will maintain their ability to respond if they are threatened by Iranian proxies, whether it be in Lebanon or in other places, for example, like Yemen. And we talked about this before, but it's also very important. There was actually an incident reported off the coast of Yemen today. We're still looking into it. But the Houthis in Yemen are also directly funded and supported by the Iranian regime. And this agreement focuses on the Strait of Hormuz, and it focuses on this broader posture across the region as it relates to Iran's military activities and their nuclear program. But there are levers the Iranians can try to pull if they want to disrupt things in the future. And one of those levers could be the Houthis in Yemen trying to close the Bab al-Mandab entrance to the Red Sea. This translates to the Gateway of Tears for a reason. And if that happens, they could disrupt international shipping in through the Red Sea. And so there are a lot of X factors here. Again, this ceasefire is not certainly going to be pretty. There will be violations. We should make no mistake. These things are very challenging. But again, this is a good first step in the right direction for the Middle East and the entire region.
All right. Yeah, it's obviously a fluid situation. We'll check in with you again, Trey. And why is it fluid? Everybody's meeting over at the G7.